Hey everyone, welcome to this explainer. Today we are unpacking the exact step-by-step logic for configuring four totally distinct consignment inventory scenarios inside Microsoft Dynamics NAV. If you've ever wrestled with your system, trying to get it to actually match what's physically happening on your warehouse floor or over at a partner's facility, you are absolutely in the right place. Today is all about the tactical step-by-step configurations you need to finally take full control of your inventory.
Okay, first things first, let's clarify exactly what we mean when we say consignment in this context. Now, while only two of our scenarios are what you'd call classic vendor-managed inventory, or VMI, all four of these use the exact same functional tracking logic in the system. Some purists out there might argue that subcontracting or product repairs aren't technically consignment, but hey, from a system configuration standpoint, they share the exact same conceptual DNA.
So here's our agenda for today. We are going to cover inventory at a customer, inventory at the vendor, customer-owned inventory, and vendor-owned inventory. And then we'll finish everything off with the consignment wrap-up.
All right, let's jump straight into scenario number one, inventory at a customer.
This first scenario really builds the foundation for tracking goods that are just sitting out there at a customer's location. This is your classic VMI setup, right? Your finished goods are on their shelves just waiting to be consumed. To keep your balance sheet completely clean, the logic is brilliantly straightforward. Step one, you just create a unique location for that specific customer. Slap their name and address on it, but honestly, you typically don't need bins or any complex warehouse transactions. Step two, you adjust the inventory posting setup for this location so it points directly to a specific consignment inventory account on your balance sheet. And step three, you just use standard transfer orders to replenish their stock.
Now here's a massive pro tip for you when you're setting up that location. Use prefix codes that actually match your customer numbers. For example, use C-10,000 for customer 10,000. It is so much better to use these prefixes instead of just plain random numbers like the default Kronos data does. Doing this ensures your master data doesn't get all tangled up and it stays super easy to identify.
The operational flow here is just beautiful. By using transfer orders, you're processing shipments exactly like regular sales orders. You can even print packing slips straight out of Dynamics NAV. And if you have a tight agreement to maintain specific stock levels, you can use SKUs and MRP to literally generate automated transfer suggestions for you. But the really brilliant part is the end of the line. Once the customer says, hey, we used your inventory, a simple sales invoice seamlessly depletes the stock from their location, and boom, automatically hits all your required accounting buckets: cost of goods sold, revenue, and accounts receivable.
Moving right along to scenario number two, inventory at the vendor.
So now we're shifting our focus over to subcontracting processes. This is where your inventory is housed over at a vendor's facility so they can do work on your parts. This perfectly mirrors the customer setup we literally just walked through. The only core difference? The context. With the customer, we were tracking finished goods to generate revenue. But here, with a vendor, we're tracking raw materials that are eventually going to feed into work in progress, or WIP.
But the procedural logic, it stays incredibly consistent. First, you establish the vendor location. And again, please make it match the vendor number. Then, you define your inventory posting setup to separate this onto a unique balance sheet account. Now, because the vendor is going to consume this inventory, Dynamics NAV actually requires you to set up a WIP account. That's determined by the consumption location combined with the inventory posting group of whatever item is being produced. And finally, just like before, you start moving goods using transfer orders.
Okay, I want to share a little expert advice directly from our source material here, purely to save your sanity. Only set up the posting matrices you actually need. Seriously, if you are never ever going to have finished goods sitting at a vendor, do not set up the account for it. Don't overcomplicate your whole system with empty permutations just because the matrix lets you. Keeping it strictly to what's needed controls what transactions are even possible, which keeps your system locked down and clean.
All right, on to scenario number three. Customer-owned inventory.
Now in this scenario, we're dealing with stuff like product repairs. The customer actually owns the physical item, but it's sitting under your roof running through your production lines. Listen up because this is absolutely critical. The main thing here is making sure no inventory value gets associated with these items. If you miss this one tiny little step on the item card, checking that inventory value 0 box, you are going to falsely inflate your balance sheet with assets you don't even own. And just a heads up, you might actually need to customize your view to get that field to show up on the item card page.
So how do we systematically handle a customer returning an item for repair? It's a really neat workaround. First, create a new item using the exact same item number, but tack on a suffix, like a -k at the end. Double-check that inventory value 0 is ticked, and get this, No need for separate general ledger accounts or posting groups here. You just receive the item using a sales return order for a big fat zero amount, assuming you aren't giving them credit, of course, and then you close it out by invoicing it. By doing this, you're safely tracking the customer's property right alongside your normal inventory through standard workflows. The final value of that repaired product? It's just going to be your own components plus your labor and overhead.
And now for our fourth and final scenario, vendor-owned inventory.
Let's tackle what is probably the most complex scenario of the bunch. This is managing vendor-managed inventory that is sitting right there in your warehouse, but you haven't paid a dime for it yet. The logistical challenge here is kind of fascinating. Operationally, you need to receive it, move it around, and count it like it's yours. But financially, you've got to keep standard or FIFO costs completely intact for when you eventually use it and pay for it, all without accidentally claiming the vendor's stuff as your own asset today. The silver bullet here is creating completely separate posting groups.
To solve this puzzle systematically, we're going to build a separate inventory posting group and a separate general product posting group. For simplicity, let's just name them both consigned. You'll define the inventory posting setup to map that expected value straight to a separate consignment inventory asset account. Then, over in the general posting setup, you map the inventory accrual to a completely separate offset account right next to it on the balance sheet.
Think about the financial math happening here for a second. Let's say you receive 100 pieces at $10 each on a purchase order. When those goods arrive, the asset account is debited $1,000. But instantly, the offset account is credited $1,000. They completely net each other out. That offset account is the hero here. It keeps your true inventory value perfectly honest.
Because we did all that setup, your subledger actually tells the truth about having 100 physical pieces on hand. Need to run a valuation report? Just filter out those consigned groups. Done. When you finally consume the items into production, the consignment account is credited and WIP is debited, exactly like it should be. And when it's time to actually pay the vendor, you create a purchase invoice, hit the Get Receipt Lines function, and just grab what you actually used, let's say 40 pieces. Invoicing those 40 pieces debits the offset account, credits accounts payable, and satisfyingly zeroes the whole shebang back out for those parts.
Let's bring it all together. Section 5. The Consignment Wrap-Up.
No matter which of these 4 scenarios you're dealing with, there is one ultimate best practice you absolutely need to follow. Always enable the expected cost posting setting. The step-by-step logic we just went through heavily relies on this setting, and it's basically mandatory if you want to ensure your general ledger stays perfectly, harmoniously synced up with the physical reality of your warehouse floor, especially if you're in a complex manufacturing environment. As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a real question to chew on regarding your own Dynamics NAV setup. When you walk out onto your warehouse floor and then go look at your screen, is your ERP system actually reflecting physical reality? Or are messy workarounds just making your accounting infinitely harder? With the step-by-step logic we've covered today, you've now got the tools to ensure your system is actually working for you and not the other way around. Thanks so much for joining me, and I'll see you next time.